はい、じゃあ続き。もう最後の最後。ね、まずジャッキーから、これはなんつうんだっけ？チャレンジ会話みたいなやつやっていくんだけども。あなたの目論見は分かったわ。でもそれはうまくいかないわ。多分ストライキの責任をダシルバとベッカーズの責任だと言いたいんでしょう。でも私は二人を間違いに巻き込むのは、でも私を二人の間違いに巻き込まないようにしてほしいわね。
Mademoiselle Conrad, if you are so confident of your innocence, perhaps we should begin with you.
ジャッキーは確かなんか結構強気で出た方がなんか意外と折れやすかったような気がする。マドマゼル・コンラッドに自身の関与を認めさせるのは容易ではない。まあ実際そんな関与してないからね。彼女は強い女性だ。以前質問を交わされたこともある。おそらくもっと攻撃的な姿勢が有効だろう。そう。意外と強気に出たらパッと折れたような気がする。記憶がある。中立。あなたは業界トップに上り詰めた方ですが、報道の世界に入った理由をお聞かせ願えますか？球団。あなたは特ダネのためなら、ほぼどんなことでもするでしょう。ネスパ？どちら？でも上から聞いてもな。今更ね、理由聞いてもって感じだから、もう、強気でいこう。
You don't need to imply it's only me that does. Ask any of my journalists, they'll say the same.
Even if in the process people are hurt?
お刺さったぞ。
You knew the situation surrounding the strikes and only sought to swell the anger in people and create further chaos.
そっちの角度で行くの？お前だって記事にしたやんけ。
Mademoiselle, you so often have something to say. Now is not the time for silence.
You really are delusional. Maybe you should just keep your theories and claims to yourself.
強引。あなたは自分の意図のために他人を利用しています。その余波など考えもせずに。非難。利益のために他者の命を犠牲にするような業界に詳しくなるつもりはありませんので。どっちも強引、非難。どっちも強気のあれだけど、まずは自分の意図のために他人を利用しています。その余波など考えもせず。利益のために他人の命を犠牲にするような業界に詳しくなるつもりはありません。でも今の顔怒ってるね。さっき一瞬刺さったけど。さっき刺さった。自分の意図のために他人を利用していますんでしょうか。どっちかって言ったらそっちの方が近いんだもんね。利益のために他者の犠牲っていう感じではない。どっちだろう。でもこれやり直しできるよね、きっと。上で。
You obviously have no idea what goes on in my world. I would say stick to honest police work, but it seems that it's not in your field either.
他者が苛立ち嫌悪。苛立ち、あなたは許されないことをしていると正直に認められませんか？嫌悪、 あなたは他者が命を落とすのを傍観し、その背中を堂々と見つけて歩いています。許されないことをして許されないことをしているというほどではないけど、苛立ち、剣を傍観し、その背中を堂々と見つけて歩いています。どっちだ？どちらさっき上だったから下にしてみようか。どっちでもどうだ。
Look, it's...
あ、失敗？あれ？成功？どっち？ちょっと表情があれだけど、ポアロさんもへこんじゃった。
Mademoiselle, I do not have time for your excuses. Do you wish to state your direct involvement, or should I?
直接関与してた？直接関与してた。
It's not...
お、成功？
Okay, fine. Yes, the story was going nowhere. There was a deal on the table, and it was going to be done and dusted. Everything you said is true. I wanted the story, the scoop that would have blown the others out of the water. I never wanted anyone to get hurt, but I can see what I did wasn't right. I didn't think you had this side in you. I can see now why Angeline asked for you personally. You're not like other cops. It's clear it's the law and doing the right thing through and through with you. If you say it was self-defense, I believe you.
あれでもジャッキーが書いた記事ってそんな悪いこと書いたの？もうこのストライキのことは書いたけど、ちょっと後でまたこれ見返さないと思う。なんだろう、なんかストライキに関して違うこと書いたのかな、事実と。ちょっと見返そうかと。
We can't just forget what that girl has done. It's not Jackie's fault or any of ours that she decided to do what she did.
次はヒューゴか。ヒューゴ、はい。
Monsieur Beckers, you are the last person I expected to defend Mademoiselle Conrad. We talked only last night, and correct me if I am wrong, but you have already declared the role you played. To me, at least.
ご自身の果たした役割を聞いてると思うんですか？
Yes, we talked. It's just not fair of you to attack Jackie like that, putting words in her mouth until she succumbs to your plan.
だってそういうものだもの。誘導するものだもの、これ。これでもいまいちちょっと成功してんのかしてないのか。いまいちわかんないんだけど、昨日の話の中でムッシュ・ベカスはストライキと暴動において自分が果たした役割を認めていた。だが、それはあの場だけのことだったようだ。私的な質問を、公にされるのは嫌かもしれないが、彼を納得させるために必要ならそれも仕方がない。ヒューゴはでも実際、なんか口ばっかで実際は何もやってない的な人なんだよね。で、皮肉。ストライキが暴動化し、仲間を危機にさらす可能性を考慮しなかったのですか？率直に、あなたは組合のリーダーでありながら、組合の役割に全く無関係の人物に惑わされたのですよ。ストライキの暴動化し、皮肉。可能性を考慮しなかったのか。リーダーでありながら、組合の取引に全く無関係の人物に惑わされた。組合の取引に全く無関係の人物って誰？ 要は、あれだよね。ヒューゴは多分、あなた口ばっかなんですよっていう、なんか、こう、本当は、何も考えてないんでしょっていうところ攻めればいいんだよね。上かな。どっちでもいいけど、上にしてみようか。よし。
This is ridiculous. It was a peaceful strike. We only wanted what was deserved. Surely you do not think I sought to worsen the situation?
Monsieur Beckers, you have taken the words from my mouth.
Jackie was documenting everything to do with the strikes. She wanted our story to be heard and wanted to know how I was handling the negotiations.
And they were handled by yourself?
Naturally. If I cannot handle simple negotiations, I am not fit to be in the position I am in.
強引。マドマーゼル・コンラッドはあなたのあらゆる決断を揺さぶり、影響を与え、操作しましたね。あなたのあらゆる決断を揺さぶり、影響を与え、操作しましたね。嫌味、あなたは自分の仕事をとても誇りに思っている方です。ストライキ中に下した決断も誇ることができるのですか？これはあれかな。下だな、下。あなたはそう。誇りに思ってるけど、脳みそが足りないんです、あなたは。っていうところ。
I was only pushing for what my men deserved, what they needed.
これは何？失敗どうだったの
？Hindsight is a wonderful thing, detective. Surely you must know that. Nothing is ever simple, detective. I'm sure you understand that better than anyone.
中立、あなたは声を上げられない人々のために戦ってきた方でしょう。また一人、社会の差別に負けてしまう方が出ることを受け入れるのですか？これいいね。これ上がいいな。もう一個。ムッシュ・ベーカース。そういう気のお話はもう十分です。真実を話すときがです。これ上がいいな。あなたもその脳みそ当たらないけど戦ってきたことは事実なんですから。立場の弱い人のためにね。もう一人、ここでちょっと今度こそ助けてみませんかってところでね。これがいい。いいにしよう。
You're right, detective. I have tried so hard to deny my part, but I know only too well that my decisions led to the death of those men. I know I cannot excuse what I've done. I just want you all to know that I am not a hateful or malicious man. I only wanted to prove that I was the right man. I have lived in other shadows for so long. I thought I would be able to finally step into the light and be the one that everyone remembered, not forgot. Monsieur Da Silva offered me a deal and I turned it down. I thought I was doing right by the workers, but it was only myself I was thinking about.
成功だ。ヒヨが反省した。
What more proof do you need?
これは失敗
He
し
said it
たのを選んで。
himself. I made a generous offer to reach a resolution, and he turned his nose up at it.
これ何を選んでも大丈夫なのかな。次はエルネストか。エルネスト難しそう。これ以上必要なんだ。
It was not that simple, though. Oui, an offer was made, but Monsieur Beckers and the workers would never have been forced into that position had their working conditions been satisfactory to begin with.
This is outrageous! Do you plan on blaming everyone for doing their jobs? I suppose it makes you feel better about yourself, doesn't it?
ムッシュ・ダ・シルバは最終的には全てを告白したものの、脅迫状の問題については身構えた態度だった。それにあれは第三者がいない私的な会話だった。彼が他の客人の前で口を開いてくれたとは思えない。自分の過ちをもう一度認めてもらう必要があるだろう。エルネストも強気で言った方がいいのかな。率直。あなたがただ仕事をこなし、労働者を公平に扱っていたのなら、ストライキについて話すこともなかったでしょう。侮辱。自分の行動を正当化するため、こうもつまらない努力をするなど、聞いたことがありませんね。問題はあなたと、あなたの下した決断に根ざしているのです。相当、あんま強気でいかない方がいいんだって。自分の過ちを認めてもらう。あなたがただ仕事をこなし、労働者をこうでストライキについて話すこともなかったでしょう。こうもつまらない努力をするなど聞いたことがありません。問題はあなたとあなたの下した決断に根ざしているのです。下にしてみようか。率直って何が率直？下にしてみよう。
Me and my decisions.
あ、刺さったかな？
Detective, you are really clutching at thin air.
ちょっと刺さったっぽいな。
Need I remind you, I am a successful businessman, and I had nothing to do with the Major's murder.
いや、そんなことない。ちょっと関係
If
して
you think otherwise, maybe you have proved us all right, that you aren't the great detective you claim to be.
ちょっと刺さった。ああ、3つ出てきた。誇り、私の主張は事実と真実に支えられています。脅迫、秘密を隠そうという欲望は強力です。あなたの欲望は簡単にくじけそうですが。率直、あなたは匿名の人物から同じ理由で脅迫されたら金を払いますか？これは逆にあなたは自分で言うの名検知じゃないと証明したのかもな。誇り。私の主張は事実と真実に支えられています。2番目はなさそうだもん。でも2番目なのか。同じ理由で脅迫されたら金を払いますか？上にしてみるか。一番上。ちょっとこれわかんない。
I'm the next target, am I? You are certainly not making any friends here, detective. We can all see right through you. Whatever you have to say, we have known each other for years, and it will take more than a young, cocksure detective to waver their support of me.
Monsieur Da Silva, you seem to have forgotten our previous conversations.
I recall them just fine, thank you. A police officer trying to manipulate facts to fit his own agenda. Shocking.
来た。強引。大丈夫。自分の見立てに合わせて操作する。従業員への虐待や民兵を雇って労働者を牽制していた件がそうだと。こ これらの事実は私の見立てに合わせてねじ曲げられたものだとおっしゃるのですか？意図があろうとなかろうと、あなたが少佐と交わした取り決めが報道の火種となったのです。従業員の虐待未病や上だかな。そうだよね。エルネストの罪と言ったらここら辺なんだよな。V で言ってみよう。
Is that what you plan to
ダ
do?
メか。
Accuse us all of something until we feel enough guilt that we agree to allow the girl to walk free.
そうなのよ。
The events that led to the Major's murder are not as simple as you have tried to convince yourself. I have uncovered what initiated both the murder of your workers and of the Major. It is you that refuses to accept the truth.
Apparently anyone can become a detective now. I really don't know how you gained your title.
失敗成功
Through order and...
パリンってならなかったから失敗か？
Order? There's no order in beating down who you consider suspects until they have no other option but to admit something, guilty or not.
でも顔が笑ってる。怒ってるけど。
Monsieur da Silva, you have stood steadfast, and your opinion on your involvement has not wavered.
やり直しか。
Detective, you would do well not to anger my friends.
It was not my intention. I only want those responsible to be held accountable for their actions. The Major's death does not fall on one person alone.
あれやり直しにならない。あら。多分失敗したのに、ルネスト。やり直しにならない。やり直しなしなんだ。で、次はカサンドラ。
Does your position on Mademoiselle Elizabeth's guilt remain the same?
Even after all your attempts, Detective, Felix was still murdered. Self-defense or not, she chose to hide what she had done because she knew what she had done was wrong. And she will be punished for it.
It was not choice to hide anything, Madame. If in her position, I ask, what would you have done? The Major has already furiously thrown an object at you, barely missing your head, and now has hold of your arm.
But I wouldn't have driven a knife into him, that I can tell you for sure. She is no fool. She intended to
決め
kill,
つけてるね。
not to defend.
マダム・バンデンボッシュははるかに手強い相手だが、彼女にも私の手法は有効だった。マドモアゼル・エリザベスに選択の余地はなかったと理解してもらうには、少佐の行動が彼女の対応を招いたのだと納得させなければならない。なんか、カサンドラは確か、わかるよっていう感じで。結構なんか、同情してあげると意外と良かったような気がする。あと、ちょい強気の、あと、同情路線が良かったような気がする。で、示唆。あなたは少佐に一番親しかった方です。彼の気性の荒さを知らなかったはずはない。無遠慮。週末に、客人の皆さんから聞いた話から考えると、少佐の暴力的な性格を見たのは、これが初めてではないでしょう。 上かな。あんま無遠慮に行くと怒りそう。気使いつつ、まあね、同じようなこと言ってるんだけどね。結局はね、上かな。上で言ってみる。
Quite presumptuous of you to assume violence is in his nature.
どうダメこれ今現在2人成功して、エルネスト失敗して、カサンドラ失敗したら、2人失敗して、バッドエンドとかあんのかな。やり直しできないっぽいもんね。
Putting my own feelings towards the Major aside, he was not an honorable man, at least at some time in his life. He must have been for you to allow him in your house for so many years.
あ、なんか刺さったぞ。
So, even you confirm he had a history of aggression.
で、率直、少佐は英国陸軍から不名誉除隊の処分を受けていますね。その理由はご存知ですか？と、挑発。彼は友人を大切にする人物をとてもうまく演じていましたが、それはパフォーマンスに過ぎなかったのです。彼は、そんなに挑発っぽくないけど、今刺さってる顔。率直？過ぎなかったのです。これでも知ってるかどうかを知りたいんです。まあ知ってると思うんだけど、不名誉状態になってることを知ってるかどうかを知りたい。何してもらうか。
I'm sure that is none of my business. Likewise,
戻っちゃった。
it is none of yours.
The Major shot and killed a number of unarmed prisoners as they were bound and terrified, posing no threat. His actions are unforgivable and should not be defended by anyone.
You judge him so harshly, but I return the question. What would you have done in his position? He had made mistakes. I will not deny that. In those moments when a decision had to be made, it fell to him, and he did what he saw fit.
見つけてきた。やっぱ少数、まあもう気性が荒くて、もうそういう、もう気性の荒いタイプだっていうことは分かってて、この家にね、かくまってたわけだから、なんかで一押しすればエリザベスのことを、その正当防衛も信じてくれそう。率直、良くない判断を下したのが一度なら間違いでしょう。ですが二度となればそれは選択です。良くない判断を下した一度なら間違い、ですが二度となればそれは間違いでしょう。それは選択です。どういうこと？共感。あなたが少佐から受けた虐待はどうです？あれは正しい行いでしたか？否定。少佐は丸腰の労働者への攻撃を命じました。とても容認できるようなことではありませんね。どういうことだ？これは課題を間違いを犯して、それは否定します。決断を下さなければならないときというものがある。 その捕虜の射殺ももうしょうがない、立場的にしょうがない状況でやむを得ずやったんだっていうふうに少々をかばってるんだね、カサンドラはね。で、良くない話は二度となればそれを選択。二度というのはエリザベスに対してってことか。で、あなたはそうから受けた虐待はどうでされ正しいよくない。まあ虐待っていうか、調査は丸ごとにして、多分ね、否定すると怒るんだよね。カサンドラだから上、これ共感にしてみようか。あなただって辛かったでしょっていうところ。そうだ。
S'il te plaît, madame. I ask that you consider everything you know of the Major carefully.
He was not always
okay.
like that. The man that I called a friend would never have done what he has. I cannot allow another innocent person to be punished for his vicious and barbarous behavior.
You have seen the Major act in a similar manner as I described before, haven't you? What was the outcome then?
You have convinced me that I am wrong, in both my opinion on Elizabeth's punishment and in the friendships I keep.
エリザベスは成功。エリザベスじゃない。カサンドラは成功。
Not when a potential crime has been committed, and I fear an innocent party may have been punished for it.
He was just a boy. I told him to stop, but he was like a wild animal.
The confrontation with Mademoiselle Elizabeth was not the first time he has come close to killing another.
以前にも誰かを殺しかけた。
It was following the officer's ball. A young man, no older than 16, stopped us on the street, begging for some change. Felix pushed him away, but he was persistent. He only wanted a few coins. Like a flash, Felix snapped and wouldn't let go of him. He would not stop punching him. I have never seen anything so brutal.
But he was never charged for the attack.
Felix called the captain at the station and said that the boy had tried to rob him, and he was merely defending himself.
やっぱ悪いやっちゃ。
The boy was thrown behind bars without a second thought. It was a full week before the bruises on Felix's knuckles finally faded.
そういうことがあったのね。
And even after witnessing such a brutal assault, you still support him. You still believe that he had not attacked Elizabeth.
そうよ。
The days following, he showed no signs of remorse, no apology to him or to me. I blamed it on the amount he had had to drink. But when you began talking about him finding Elizabeth in his study, I somehow knew it had happened again.
Had you been open about the Major's temper, this could all have been avoided. When you tell the courts the truth, Mademoiselle Elizabeth's self-defense plea cannot be ignored.
れはこれ
Just
あ、
when I
次孫
thought I could not see a more spineless move.
お前だって
Excuse me?
あんただって結構な悪よ
You allowed a bully and thug to remain in your house and endanger your family.
あなたが言わないでつも
I'm sorry, Margot, but I am struggling to understand why you have involved yourself in this affair.
そうよそうよ
I'm surprised you can hear me way up there on that high horse of yours.
次は孫
Dare you speak to me in that way? Who I decide to keep in my house is
Oh,
my
이런 거
decision
알아요,
and
이런.
no one else's.
I can see that. Murderers, thieves, and extortionists are all acceptable, it seems.
送り込んだのはあなただから孫とりあえず泥棒に関しては
Countess, I have talked at length of the Major's death, but not the reason for my invitation in the first place.
そうそもそも免れたのは脅迫状
When I last gathered you all together, I spoke of a blackmail ring that was rife in the area, and then of the letter that the Major had received.
うん
Mademoiselle Angeline requested my help personally after she received such a letter threatening her family name. She felt I was the only one that could uncover the truth. And uncover the truth I have.
Get on with it, detective. Who dared try and extort my family and then have the gall to allow me to welcome them into my home?
If it was not for the honesty of a young servant, I would perhaps still be looking for the
For goodness sake,
Voilà.
it was me.
白状した自分から
Margot, how could you?
カサンドラは知らなかったんだっけカサンドラには言ってないのかアンジェリーには言ったけど
While it looked as though the Countess was helping the young women at the shelter, she was in fact only finding them positions of employment in wealthy homes to gather information on them and learn secrets that she would ultimately be able to use against them.
うんそうそう悪いやっちゃ
Monsieur da Silva fell victim to her network of moles and was in turn blackmailed. It was quite the prosperous setup you had, knowing that they would not be prepared to lose their social standing if a secret was to find its way from where it had been hidden for so long.
That cannot be true, Margot. How could you do such a cruel thing?
That is rich, coming from you.
You are one of my oldest friends.
High and mighty Madame Van den Bosch, you think you can do what you wish when you wish it and there will be no repercussions. You are as bad as all of them.
やっぱ嫉妬的なのが動機として大きいのか
If I do not get a straight answer out of you, I will march you to the police station myself.
I'm surprised it took the Major this long to start living with you. He must have been on the edge for some time.
孫の
How dare you speak to me like that? In my own home.
A home you share with the father of your daughter for so many years, and she still remains none the wiser.
もう言っちゃうのねそこもね
You have no right.
ちょっと変わってあららららら
Angeline? Have you heard what she has admitted to? She is merely trying to make herself...
Is what she says true?
うん知っちゃった
He was my father?
まあでも
That is the secret that the letter was talking about, isn't it? You told me that we had nothing to hide. Detective Poirot, were you aware of this?
Oui, mademoiselle. But it was not my place to repeat.
I don't understand. What about father?
Your mama betrayed the love of a good, honest man and played away behind his back and then kept it hidden for all these years like a lady of the night with her client list.
You will say no more. Angeline, I...
Did Felix know?
This is not an appropriate conversation.
He knew, dear girl. He knew the whole time. It is only dear Edwin that was blind to their deceit.
You will not talk of him like that. You will not talk of him at all.
If I don't, who will? You never deserved him. You don't even deserve the memory of him.
Countess, there is something that you still have not explained.
What more is there for her to say?
How long were you in love with the Viscount for?
そうなんだ。
Is that...
あ、そうなんだ。
We were destined to be together.
試薬ってあれだよね。
And then you turned up. And I was all but forgotten about.
But you were nothing more than friends.
And you made sure of that, didn't you? From the day you arrived, it was all about what you wanted and what you had to do to get it. You didn't consider Edwin at all. He was just a purse to you.
I loved my husband, and I miss him every day.
Loved him enough to stray?
Both of you, no more.
Please, Angeline, let me explain.
Maman, I do not wish to hear anything else from you.
Not even your own daughter wants to hear your lies anymore. Cassandra Van den Bosch, all alone.
How dare you!
そのマーゴとエロインの話は。
While I feel a sense of satisfaction and pride in solving both cases, there is still a part of me that is reluctant to revel in triumph. I am content with the unmasking of Countess de Vos as the blackmailer, and knowing that she will pay for her crimes. But it is the justice for Mademoiselle Elizabeth that worries me. She will stand in a court of law, and I can only hope that they can see she acted in self-defense. I must trust that our legal system and justice will prevail, and a fair sentencing will be given. In protecting her own life, she took the life of another. Perhaps the guilt she must live with is a greater punishment than any sentence she can receive. Countess de Vos was taken from Nemoziné House in cuffs and placed under arrest. Although she initially tried to plead her innocence, Inga, along with a number of other girls that the Countess had found employment for, came forward and made full statements. She was charged with 5 counts of blackmail and extortion and sent to a house of corrections, where she will have a new life to become accustomed to. Monsieur Sterling and Mademoiselle Rihanna were also reprimanded for their participation. While they may not be facing time in prison, tampering with a crime scene and obstruction of a police investigation are certainly not something that houses and new employers will look positively on.
監獄に逮捕はされなかったけど、もうちょっと再就職
Mademoiselle
は厳しい。
Angeline finally became Madame Demire, and together they took up residence in England, where Monsieur Demire continues to support and fight for fairness and equality in London.
アンジェ
I
リ
am
また
happy to
2
say
人
that
雇
we
っ
have
てあげ
remained
たの
in contact, and Madame Demire has become a regular correspondent of mine. And the latest joyous news is that they are expecting a child of their own. Madame Van den Bosch showed compassion that I had not seen in her before. She stood in court and gave a truthful and genuine character reference of Elizabeth, as well as describing the major and the atrocious crimes he had committed. After Madame Van den Bosch's secret was revealed to the world, her position in the social hierarchy was no more, disappearing in a moment. While she still resides in Belgium, I believe she has had to adapt to a far more modest way of life. A humbling experience for her, I am sure. Following her actions in the courtroom, Angeline believed that her maman still had a place in her life. though they are on different sides of La Manche, they remain in contact. Mademoiselle Conrad left Nemosine House the same way she entered, confident in herself and audacious in her opinions. Her report of the Major's murder at the house and the surrounding blackmails became one of the most talked about stories of the year. While there were certain details of her own involvement that did not make it to print, she was really quite complimentary about the detective at the heart of the
自
case.
分のことだ。
Monsieur de Silva tried to continue in his position as factory owner and business entrepreneur, but after his accounts and business dealings were investigated following the details of his blackmail being made public in Mademoiselle Conrad's article, his illustrious business empire began to crumble and is now facing an international corporate investigation. Monsieur Beckers stepped down from his position as union leader, accepting that he was no longer fit to represent the workforce that, in his words, he had let down on a scale of unmeasurable proportion. Although he is no longer the voice of the workers, he continues to support them from behind the scenes. Monsieur Zachariah and
もう
his
ザッ
brother
ク、
made
久
amends,
々のザック。
and returning to his family home, and after sobering up,
うんうん。
he was able to find the help that he required. I understand that he is now helping fellow soldiers with similar conditions. And Mademoiselle
あ、エリ
Elizabeth,
ザベス、エリザベス。
she stood before a court, and while the proceedings were deemed controversial, the charges against her were dropped, and the reasoning
あ、
of
よかったね。
self-defense was
よかった
accepted
よかっ
by
た
the。presiding judge. Madame Vandenbosch's testimony, along with Mademoiselle Angeline's declaration of her good character, was enough to show that it was not in Elizabeth's nature to act in such a violent way. The abundance of evidence against the Major, and his violent and cruel nature, including his appalling acts during the strikes and the war, was more than enough to prove that Mademoiselle Elizabeth had no other option in that situation but to defend herself in any way that she could. With the new arrival of Madame and Monsieur Demire's child next year,
ほうほう。
they have agreed to give Elizabeth the opportunity to return home to England
あ、よかった
and
ね。
take up a position in their home as nanny.
全員にアーチボルトとレハなもの雇ってあげたら。ことで、あ、よか
The
った。
death of Elizabeth's beloved Luke has been at the
あ、
center
あれが
of
ルーク。
everything.
ほうほう。
Had those in
初めて、
positions
初
to
めて
help
かも。
not acted with only themselves in mind, perhaps he would still be alive today, and the Major would have paid the price for his own crimes in the eyes of the law, not at the blade of a knife. The blood of Major Felix Egan will remain on Elizabeth's hands, a stain that wherever she is and whatever she may do, she will never be able to wash clean. However, it will remain as a reminder to not only her, but all of us, of what we as human beings are capable of to protect ourselves. We all have something that may be considered shameful or sinful, and it is how we deal with it that shows our true character. Those involved in the riots, the workers' deaths, and the Major's killing believed themselves to be untouchable. Whether it was from their social standing or their confidence in themselves, they learned that everyone is accountable for their actions. There is no exemption because of the suit you wear or the money in your bank account. There is no price to a man's life. It cannot be bought or traded or discarded. No man is better than another, including Detective Hercule Poirot.
終わった。終わった。長かった。でも最後良かった。フロレットの時と違って、エリザベスは、とりあえずは逮捕されず、またアンジェリンとイデオのところで働けるってことでよかった。長かったな。 えずよかった。終わった。長かった。でも、よかった。とりあえずハッピーエンドっぽいもんね。よかったです。どうしよう。これ、次もまた、ポアロさんのやつ。ABC 殺人事件も私、セールで100円ぐらいで買ったやつがあるから、それ次やってみようかな。久々に、昔の作品、出て、楽しかった。シャーロック・ホームズとかそういうのもいい。とりあえずまたやってみる。記憶を忘れた頃にもう一回やってもいいけど、最後エルネスト失敗しちゃったっぽいから、やり直しできなかったから。で、もう全部なんか忘れた頃にもう一回やってもいいかも。とりあえず今日はというかこのアガサ・クリスティ、エルキュール・ポアロ・ザ・ファースト・ケースはこれにておしまい。